Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to our final review for Season 1 of Halo, Episode 9. It's over. We don't have to watch any more Halo. For now.
It's done. Oh, man. Go ahead.
I was talking to somebody in the Discord earlier. Not in ours, in one of the other ones that we're in. And I was like, Halo's finally over, and put like a celebration thing. And someone's like, it got canceled? I was like, no. I was like, they finished filming Season 2 as soon as Season 1 came out. So we're going to there will be a second season of this show.
Hopefully in the second season, he just keeps his helmet on the whole time.
Yeah.
Doubt it, though.
Dude.
He's going to do this. Cortana is going to come back and, in the first episode, it's going to be like, oh, I can't do this anymore, John.
Her action at the end of the episode made him more like Master Chief than he's been the entire season. And it's funny because a lot of people they've been very critical of this show. And I saw this one tweet where this guy's like, they just don't like it because it's for adults. That was his argument.
Oh, yeah.
What does that even mean? And here's the thing, man. Like, we might not be right about everything, but I like to believe...
But we're not wrong.
Well, I like to believe that you and I at least are trying to fill out our arguments.
Yeah.
So if we're saying, like, Halo's bad, this whole season's been bad, or Episode 1's bad, here are all the things that we noticed, right? We're just pointing things out to you.
Yep. We're not just saying, hey, I felt like this was bad. We're giving, some good objective reasoning behind it, right?
We're trying to show.
Some enforcement.
Yeah, we're trying to show. And then even on things that you could consider more subjective about the show, we're trying to kind of reason out our arguments for why those are the way that they are, or why our arguments are the way that they are.
And not only that, but we're also detailing how it could be better as well.
Agreed.
What they could have done differently.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're just being negative in the sense of guys and gals, we don't want to just bash a TV show just to bash it. We would like to see good TV shows. Yeah. It's much more fun reviewing something that is good than it is something that's bad.
Dude, I want to talk about stuff that I like, but the problem is that as far as new stuff is concerned, that's non-existent. It's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming.
I have some
ideas.
Bland.
Yeah.
You said it's coming. What do you think? What shows?
There's an anime I'm going to make you watch, I think.
Oh.
Because it's probably the best thing out currently.
Okay.
As far as new stuff is concerned, it's top tier for me.
Oh, nice.
And it's just a prime example of how you can take somewhat of a creative idea and make it really endearing and have the characters be really interesting and three-dimensional, and you can add a little bit of this other stuff in there. I'm telling you, man, we're just, as far as Western stuff is concerned, we're just not getting it right now.
Yeah, we're not. And I guess we're not going to have a baby Mackie. I guess,
yeah, well, we'll see. It's
or a baby Master Chief.
We'll have to wait until
they gotta
next
have the baby
season.
in there
Next time.
That's gonna be the teaser. There's just gonna be a baby and Master Chief.
Dude, So we didn't get baby Arbiter. There were some people who were. This is all jokes for the most part.
Yeah.
It was like jokes / things that we kind of would hope would happen because it would take it to a new level of just like, what are they doing?
Absurdity.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, this episode in general was nonsense.
Yep.
It was absolute nonsense, especially the first 10 minutes before the opening credits. The whole time I was like, what are they doing? Okay.
Just him walking around
Yeah.
I get he got blasted from the artifact and
Yeah, how it conveniently gets the artifact conveniently gets powers whenever it needs to.
They didn't really show that in the last episode. If I remember correctly, in episode 8, everything
they did
destroyed did they?
Maybe not to the degree that it actually happened, but the very end of it is this big energy wave going out, which, it's weird.
But when it happened earlier in the season...
Yeah, in episode 1, that's not what happened.
Yeah, that's not what happened.
Yeah, it's definitely inconsistent.
But again, this is where, okay, well, is it because, John touched it and he didn't know what he was doing and like Mackie can kind of manipulate it better? If so, they don't do a good job of explaining
No, they don't explain that at all. If you're right, if that's the case, they didn't explain that at all. And they should have, for some reason, if she has but the thing is, right, is that he, on accident in the first episode, harnesses it as an EMP. Yes. But then for some reason, for her, it turns into almost like an actual weapon that's destroying foundations.
Like a bomb.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is, an EMP bomb. Like an EMP and a bomb came together.
It's absolutely...
And exploded and hurt people and everything. Because you're right, it caught me off guard when he's as hurt as he is, which I more so understood. Like, he took that beating beforehand. Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. Dude. But then, like, Kai and the other Spartans and everyone else, I'm just like, everyone's bleeding.
So here's the thing that's really interesting, and we'll jump into it because this is right. Yeah. This leads into the beginning of the episode. So, right, we've had, from what we can tell, whatever that, we'll just call it an explosion for a lack of a better, that pulse, whatever it was. Yeah. It not only blew out the systems in for the UNSC, it also seems to have like hurt a lot of people, right? And so what immediately, like off the bat, dude, what is so weird about this is that Master Chief is the only person who's able to get back up on his feet after this happens, and he's also the only one not wearing armor.
Yeah, no. And then he doesn't even go to get his armor.
No, it takes him, he doesn't get it for this entire opening segment.
Oh, and I just remember, too. Remember when they were on his home planet of whatever, who gives a crap?
Yeah.
And the Covenant came to get the artifact?
Yeah.
But you remember, like, he touched it. Didn't it do the same thing there? It blasted?
Oh, at that time, it was like a sound grenade, so everyone's ears were getting blown out. But it didn't destroy the entire foundation of the area that was in. Now, you could say that it was a different artifact or whatever, but it's still... Yeah. It's absurd. It's completely absurd.
I was like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. Like, especially with the other Spartan elites having their armor on, not getting up, and he's the only one that does, and he doesn't have his armor on. Then he doesn't go to get his armor.
I was trying to...
You would think, like, he's probably not, discombobulated. I don't know. Well, I feel like if he's an elite soldier, the first thing he would try and do is to go get armor and weapons.
Yeah, well, especially when he realizes. So he gets up, and I was trying to find the shot of Kai, and Kai's laying on the ground, and she's like, "Master Chief, go! You have to go." I think this is her right here.
She said, "Master Chief, where's the gun grease? I need to dye my hair."
So he leaves them right in this room, and this will be important for a discussion in a couple minutes of the way people are moving around this area after this blast went off, because it feels. To me, I'm trying not to say feels, it seems inconsistent to me in what we were just shown and what happens in a couple minutes.
Okay.
So he's wandering around, he's like super hurt, and this was the moment that I was like, 3 Spartans, like he got destroyed in the last episode. Like they were beating the crap out of him, right? He doesn't have his armor on. We've had plenty of discussions with people about that. I mean, he got hit in the face a ton, right? And then this blast goes off, and he gets thrown up against something at the end of the last episode. Totally fine. He's able to get up. He's like a little blurry or whatever, but he kind of just goes on his way.
He had his plot armor on, David, so you didn't consider that.
Yeah. But everybody else who is in this armor that we've been told is super special, right? It's bullets basically can't penetrate it. They're all lying on the ground as if like it's the end for them.
One of the things I'm enjoying about this is that I'm not the only one. Like sometimes I'm like, am I crazy? Am I the only one noticing these inconsistencies?
Yeah.
But because sometimes you can get gaslit by seeing some of the other people talking positive about this, and it's like, hey, listen, if you like the show, more power to you. But how are you glossing over these obvious inconsistencies?
Yeah.
You can't just say, oh, this is good because it has Master Chief in it and he's getting in touch with his feelings.
Yeah, they're not paying attention. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Emotions, David and I have said it many times. If you listen to our podcast, we don't go the whole route of facts don't care about your feelings type of deal. No,
emotions matter in this stuff too.
Emotions,
but it has to be good.
But it has to be good. That's the thing, right? And we keep going back to Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Go watch that movie if you haven't. they do a superb job of displaying that.
Yeah.
Way better than this crap.
Yeah. Okay, so here's Chad Marine, who was burned to death. Again, something that we didn't really know was possible. I'm telling you, this thing it's not consistent. And we've been saying
I saw this and I was like, ooh, barbecue.
Yeah, we've been saying this since the beginning of the show, but the technology in the show is very inconsistent.
It is.
Some of it is highly advanced.
And the CGI was bad, too.
Oh, the CGI was so bad in this episode. We'll get to that with that
I tried to
ending.
screenshot some of it, but apparently you can't screenshot the episode.
Oh.
It goes black. They must have some type of...
You know what you got to do? You know the browser that you have to use?
I know. But I was on my phone watching this.
Oh, okay. So yeah, now Chief is aware that Mackie stole the artifact, and she's on her way out, and she runs across these two Marines, shoots one of them, right, and he just immediately dies. Like it's like, all right. It looked like she shot him in the stomach, so I'm just like, okay, whatever. But what's so weird, this other Marine, he does not react at all. So, Joseph.
Well, he had to wait for her line.
Yeah. So, if this guy was your friend, right, if this was you, and you just watched this person who I assume they would know, right? You would think that if these guys were competent, that the two of them would know who she is.
Right.
That everyone would be aware of this situation so that they're staying on high alert. But this guy gets shot. This dude doesn't pull a weapon at all.
No.
He just...
And then she said she shoots him, and then it's like, 5 seconds later, which people don't understand.
Look at this. Yeah. He doesn't draw.
An eternity.
He
when
doesn't...
You're in a, when you're in a fight, 5 to 10 seconds is a long time.
Look at this. She looks up at him, points a gun. She's looking down at this other guy.
Yep.
For an extended period of time, right? Shoots him, still aiming down at this guy. He's had an eternity to draw on her.
Yep.
And doesn't do it. It's ridiculous.
Maybe
it's
he's
ridiculous.
the janitor. I don't know. I see that yellow container right there.
We're a minute and a half into this episode.
I saw that scene. I was like, yeah, right. This Marine.
So then she points.
That incompetent.
Yeah. She points at him. It doesn't do anything.
And then just tells her right where the Covenant ship is.
Yeah. So in the span of the couple of minutes, right, that Chief went to go find out what was going on, where Miranda told him about Mackie.
And Kai was on the ground.
Yeah, Kai was on the ground.
Trying to dye her hair.
Suffering, and the two of them were like knocked out, right?
Right.
There was even the girl who's standing over here she's basically just the background Spartan at this point.
Yeah. What's her name? Ritz?
Ritz. Riz?
I don't know. Riz. Ritz crackers.
So they, in this, what seemed to be a short amount of time, which this is what I was telling you before, where this felt very suspect to me. That's like they managed, like how did they get here? How did they get into this situation and know that Master Chief was specifically going to be in this hallway? Because what I thought happened at first, I thought it was the editing when I was watching this, but I went back before we recorded because I wanted to try to make sure I was if I wasn't confused. And so there was a little confusion. This isn't the place where they all got knocked down. It's just one of the hallways that they've been in before. They all get here and they're standing in the hallway when he shows up with their guns pointed at her. Like, this doesn't make any sense. This whole situation, in my mind, should have taken place in the room where the artifact had gotten taken. That they should have gotten up and brought her into that room where Chief and Miranda were, and then Miranda's father, Captain Keyes, should have shown up as well, and that's where this entire bit of dialogue should have happened. Not that it really matters, but it's very weird.
Felt out of place.
It did. It felt really jarring to me.
Yeah, I agree with you because all of a sudden we're forced into the scene that really didn't show any, I say build up, not that you have to show 10 minutes worth of build up. That's not what I mean. But you go from them laying on the ground, trying to get themselves together to all of a sudden this scene seems very forced.
Yeah. And
to have like what you're saying, have this scene between Captain Keyes and all of them and everything.
This should have been a pivotal moment in the show and it fell flat.
Yep, it did.
And unfortunately, I don't think the acting was very good by Keyes, Captain Keyes in this segment.
Yeah.
The emotional impact was not there.
I was, when we get to it, there was something I was surprised by them on, but when we get to that scene, I'll talk about it.
So
I agree with you.
So this scene, they basically just all become aware of what was going on with Halsey, and they all kind of make up in this this span of this moment.
But none of them take out, or the other two Spartans don't take out their emotional inhibitors.
And we have to talk about that because, again, there's a lot of inconsistencies with the Spartans later in
their humanity overcame the
I'm sure.
inhibitor.
They're literally like beep boop. I'm a robot in the last episode, and then by the end of this episode, they have emotions, and you're like, you need to choose.
It was the power of Master Chief, David.
Yeah. So now we have our incompetent Marines standing outside this massive spaceship that Halsey is on. I was trying to find there's like a shot of it. So here you have they got a couple turrets, which we know in the hands of normal people don't do anything, and they're all aiming it at this massive ship that Halsey's trying to escape on.
Yep.
Which in my mind doesn't make sense. The whole time I was thinking, don't the Marines have anti-air? That's going to be another just running thing through the beginning of this opening segment.
I was going to bring that up if you didn't. Because I was like, where's the anti-air defense of Reach, your home planet?
Yeah,
like,
listen, we know they have it because they talked about it and showed it in the first episode.
Yep.
And you can't say that it was knocked offline because her ship is up and running by the time this is going on. And if her ship that, as far as we can tell, is Marine or UNSC property, then the other stuff's got to be working too. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
I will give them 2 positives for this episode. Actually, there's going to be 3. When we get to the scene, I'll talk to you about it. But 2 positives. First, it was only 45 minutes long. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Yep.
The second thing is, oh, crap. What was it? Oh, I forgot. Go on. I'll remember. Eventually.
So anyway, the thing that's so the Spartans are going after Mackie, and the Marines are worried about Halsey. And I couldn't help but think it was ridiculous that they were so worried about Halsey in this moment.
Yeah, it does seem.
What are your priorities? Now,
it does seem strange.
It would seem that it was a small contingent.
It would make more sense for the Marines to do that in that moment rather than have Kai do that. Yeah. Have her Silver Team go after Mackie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
that's
more
fair.
Important.
Kai does go after them. But again, it's just one of those things that's like, what's more important at this point? This artifact that you don't want to get into the hands of the Covenant, or a crazy woman?
Oh, I remember my second positive. Yeah. Quan wasn't in this episode.
I didn't even think about it. I mean, when she's gone, dude, you just don't even realize she's gone.
That instantly makes the episode just so much better.
Yeah. You don't miss her, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm like, which is funny because it's like that's another way it's inconsistent. We have that whole episode dedicated to her, and then absolutely nothing.
I was right, dude. They wrapped up her entire story arc for the season in that one episode. She wandered around for most of the time, and then they're like, okay, now we'll give you some story.
Yep. But in the books.
Yeah. Okay. So this is another thing that I thought was really funny. So we just saw the shot of all the Marines, right? Out there trying to stop from Halsey from taking off. I always want to call her Miranda. And then we have this shot, right, of the Covenant ship that's just docked in here, and there are 2 guards. There are 2
around that Covenant
guards.
You would think it would be protected a lot better than with just 2 incompetent guards.
And yeah, they talk about it later, right? Because we were trying to figure out, and no one ever answered the question for us, so it is what it is. But we know for a fact that there are at least 10,000 Marines on this base because they mention it in this episode. And you're telling me this piece of hardware,
which is extremely important,
very important, that could be studied, that could help them learn a lot, was guarded by these 2 guys, and they got taken out by a little blonde woman.
But David, she had a gun.
Yeah. She's also, again, this makes no sense because everyone on the base should be aware of her presence.
Yep.
And be like, she's supposed to be here. If she's not there, make sure she doesn't leave. It's so ridiculous, dude. Anyway, so she escapes.
I heard people talking positive about this episode, and I'm just like, how? It doesn't make any sense. It's like just because there's action in this episode doesn't make it a good episode.
The action wasn't even good.
It just means that it's probably if you're just looking at this TV like season 1, right? It's a good episode in comparison to the other episodes we've had, but as far as it being an actual good episode, it's not.
Quality, yeah. This is just
it's still a very bad episode. If all the other ones are 1s, right?
Yeah.
Then and this is still a 3. You know what I mean? Just maybe not saying
2.
That's my rating for it. Yeah.
1.5.
Yeah, exactly.
This shot's actually not too bad. I appreciate this. It's very symmetrical. But that's like one little shot. It's so funny. That's just another thing I saw is all these people talking about how great the cinematography in this is, and I'm like, you're just picking out a couple decent shots.
Yeah.
You're not showing this for what it really is, and all of the really like poorly shot stuff in this. It's so misleading.
Dude, that scene with them on the ship, with Captain Keyes and everything, that was so bad CGI in the background.
Yeah.
But we'll get to it.
So anyway, yeah, this is kind of what you were talking about before, all this destruction that was going on.
Yep.
We haven't seen this yet, even though the thing has gone off, the artifact has gone off more than once.
Yep.
And it seems to be really inconsistent whether it can when it goes off or not, and like why is it kind of able to be used as a weapon?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why weren't these things studied? Like the minute that it was able to essentially zap everything on reach, it's like they had it in their control, and they're like, we should probably figure out why it was able to do that.
And the Admiral isn't bad in this episode. Her emotion and character range increased to not being mad, but being level-headed. Actually, she's the one that gives Chief some solid advice. Hey, man, don't be over emotional.
Yeah, stop being a whiny baby and actually be who you're supposed to be. It was. Yeah, there's a couple moments like that in this episode where the potential actually shines through just a little, like a little crack in it. Yeah, it's still. I laughed so much during this episode, dude. All right, so here we are. Kai is trying to go after Halsey.
Running very fast.
Was there setup for why she decided to go after Halsey specifically, or is this just her not keeping control of her emotions and doing what she wants to do? Is that what's going on here?
Really,
because I don't remember if there
can't
was...
really remember if there has been any built up for this other than just the fact of her knowing that Halsey kidnapped them.
Right. So for whatever reason, she needs this information.
Right.
So she's running. This looked pretty terrible. It just this is not great, man.
No. I've seen better CGI. Actually, in Space Odyssey has better CGI from 1969. It does.
It's funny. People will always talk about, we talk about things being too clean, things not looking like well worn in. This is another kind of example of that.
Too polished.
It's just, people get so upset with the term polished. What do you mean by that? It's like, I literally just said clean. It's like, it needs to look like it's lived in a little bit more.
Yeah, lived in. Yeah. That's exactly.
And part of that is because when you do everything in CG, that's just kind of the way everything looks super smoothed out. Like it just looks off.
Does it look real?
It looks off.
A great example is The Hobbit. That's one of the criticisms with The Hobbit is that, the orcs, everything just looks too clean. It doesn't look worn in, lived in. It doesn't look real.
Yep. So this massive ship is then taken down by some pistol shots into these little vents. She basically destroys the engines doing that. Just like, all right. It seems so lame.
But the UNSC are dumb, David. So when they made that ship, they did that
made obvious weak points.
Yeah.
So
with no fail safes.
Here's creepy guy and Halsey, and they're in, and they know. And this was actually kind of a moment. Again, when we talk about how there are moments in this that in a better show it works, her dropping in like this. Great moment. I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, I like what you did here, right? But it's immediately, and they do this all the time, it's just immediately flattened again because once she gets inside, she takes her helmet off.
Yep. And it's like, dumb. You wouldn't do that in it.
Go ahead.
No, I know. Yeah. I'm just like, it aggravated me so much because she had to go. I'm an idiot.
Who am I?
I can't control my emotions. I got to look at her with my eyes, with my helmet off. When it's like you're clearly in a situation where you're chasing after someone who's trying to escape for their life, right?
Yep.
So they're a threat. And you're a special forces trained soldier, the elite. And within this, not just special forces trained, but you're on the very top. You're the elite unit of the elite.
Yep.
You're not in the top 1%. You're in the top 0.1%, right? And the first thing you do is take your helmet off just because you got an emotional inhibitor taken out of your back. You lose all that training. Doesn't make any sense. And it's like,
it frustrated me so much. And my immediate thought was like, I was like, creepy dude's about to shoot her in the back of the head, which isn't exactly what happens.
I was expecting it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, great. As soon as that happened, I'm like, okay, I know she's going to go in there, not focus on the other dude, just focus on Halsey because, she's not going to remember any of her training.
Yeah. She's like, who am I? Tell me my real name. And then what's-his-face hits her in the back of the head.
How does my hair look?
Yeah. It's like somewhere in here, he like...
smacks her.
Yeah, he smacks her right there with this hammer thing.
Which seems like if he hit her in the head with that hammer thing, because he smacked her in the head, right?
Yeah.
The action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With this.
You get hit in the head with a hammer?
Yeah, she should have been. Plus, you got to remember, too, that she's already been hurt. She was like lying on the ground, barely conscious at like 10 minutes ago. Not even. This was 7 minutes ago in the episode.
And that's a heavy-duty hammer at that, too.
So, obviously, that doesn't work. And she destroys this dude.
I did like that scene,
yeah,
though.
It still felt... yeah, here it is. She bashes this dude up in here. I assume he dies. They play it as if he dies, but then we know for certain after because he doesn't make it out of the ship when it crashes. Yeah. But here he is. Here's the end of Creepy Guy who had no plot. Had a couple moments where we thought they might do something story-wise with it because he's clearly in love with Halsey to some degree or obsessed with her. Yeah, you're right. It was completely a false flag. Just a red herring. And then she's like, okay, this is one of 2 times in this episode where I think she makes a good decision. She obviously doesn't feel the same way. We'll get to the other one later on in the episode. It's towards the very end. But it was like, oh, yeah, you did it. Yeah, good job. And then she's like, oh, what have I done? I killed someone. It's like, lady, you've been killing people for years.
I know.
It's like, come on, man. So anyway.
Unjustly, immorally killing people. And then,
from what we've been told. Killing being the reason that Quan Ha's mother is dead. Because I assume she was there with Chief. Like if Silver Team is his team, like she was probably around when that happened. So yeah, there's some more stuff. They're all like worried about everything that's going on. This is and that's the other thing that's
going down.
Yeah, like look at this. Why are there so many people in this room and there were only 2 guards guarding that ship?
And not only that, why are they just standing around?
They're all standing around like worried about
everybody look.
Yeah. But you got 2 guys.
Just look.
Yeah. You got 2 guys guarding this Covenant ship that's very valuable, right? And then even less people seemingly guarding the artifact that was just easily taken by the small blonde woman.
Yep.
Like, I just don't understand, man.
Doesn't make any sense.
Anyway, Kai's like...
I understand there's command centers and stuff like that. That makes sense. But typically, generally speaking, you're working and there's things going on, even as problems are going on, right? Because there's multiple issues you're handling at one time. You're multitasking, right?
Yeah, and
not just generally speaking, not just staring at a screen. Granted, I've never been in a command center, but from everything I've read and studied in history and things like that, and different wars and talking to other people,
Well, not only that, but again, it just goes back to the fact that you have this command center that's full of people, and then you have 2 guards. You have 2 guards, right? It seems like their priorities are not in place. And what that really comes down to is the inconsistency of the creators of the show. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so Kai gets worried and she finally puts her helmet back on because the ship is crashing after Halsey escapes and the other guy dies. And it's her fault anyway because she was the one that shot out the engines.
Yep.
So they do this like another one of these dumb moments where you think she's about to die. And the ship crashes and blows up. And they're like, oh no. And what I thought was going to happen here, and again, this is me giving too much credit for the direction the show would have gone in. For a minute, I was like, oh, maybe she's going to pretend to be dead And now that she has the inhibitor out and she has all these emotions back and she wants to figure out who she is, this will set up a plot for her in the next season where she's going down the trying to find myself route. Now, and again, in better writing, better shows, that does work. And unfortunately, we've just been given so much of it that's terrible in the past couple of years, from Thor in particular, that we...
Thor 10, I'm still trying to find myself.
Yeah, we tend to look at some of those tropes as not being great. But of course, that's not what they did, and she survives.
You have to execute on the trope. That's the whole point. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, it has to work correctly. There's only a certain number of stories that you can tell. Like, every story has essentially been told. It's the creativity and the passion and the creativity and the work that you put behind it that will help it shine above other things, right?
Agreed.
So anyway, she's alive, and they're all like, "Oh, I guess we have to go after Halls or Mackie now," and then we get the opening credits. He goes and talks to Miranda. I'm gonna be honest, I really don't even remember what happens in this scene.
Yeah, she was just showing him what happened in the room with the artifact.
Oh, that's right.
And Mackie speaking and all that crap, and then touching the artifact, and then he's saying, we need to go to their home planet, and they said, but whatever the galaxy is called or whatnot, I can't remember. They're like, there's no planet there that supports life, and he said, no, give me the coordinates, because Mackie said that the Covenant were there, and then the Admiral says, well, how can you trust her? And he said, I can just feel that she was honest with me.
Yeah, my feelings.
I just feel it.
Yeah, my small head is telling me.
Yeah.
Dude, their relationship is so stupid.
It's so cringe, man. It's so bad.
And this was the scene too where the Admiral was saying that she wanted to send 10,000 Marines. And he's like, no, we only need the 4 of us. And it was like, dude, you should have taken the Marines. Like, you and the Marines. Like, how could it hurt?
Yeah, exactly.
Again, this is that thing that, why is it worse to have at least this number of people with you when you get there? And we'll see later, it obviously was a bad decision on Chief's part.
Yeah, even as just a support element.
Yeah.
Even if if he said, okay, well, Silver Team's going to go in first, and if we need reinforcements, they'll be there in case something happens, right?
Yeah, these people, they're Marines. Their job.
Yep.
They just had a spy infiltrate them. You would think that you would want to fight back and have as many people as possible helping you get this thing.
And this is when Admiral tells Master Chief to take his panties off and put on his boxers and
put on his big boy pants.
Yep. And be in control of himself and not be irrational and irate. And
he agrees, and he goes and gets suited up. Finally. Still doesn't put his helmet on yet.
No, can't do that. He thought twice about it before he jumped out of the ship too, I bet. The audience needs to see my face.
Yeah. Captain Keyes comes and kind of apologizes. They sort of have a heart-to-heart.
I did appreciate this scene for this reason. I thought they were going to have this, scene to where they're like going into, I can't believe you did this, and he gets emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to this short form of consistency of Master Chief saying to him, hey, now's not the time and place, but there will be reckoning for you, and not just you, but for all of us.
Yeah, and it's good foreshadowing. It's good foreshadowing considering that what happens to him later on.
Yeah.
Much, much later on. I doubt we'll ever actually get to see that on Paramount. Yeah, so yeah, I tend to agree. And again, it's one of those things that this is one of those moments that I would actually say, because we've talked about this before, where if you're a fan of Halo, the games, the books, whatever the case may be, you're aware of what is actually being foreshadowed here when they're talking about a reckoning for everyone involved. But if you're not, it still works as a moment of being like, oh,
yeah, because I can't remember what happens to Keyes.
I won't spoil it. People can go look it up. It's literally, go type in what happens to Keyes on Wikipedia and you'll find out.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is one of those moments, right, where it works whether you're a fan of the show or not, which is the thing that we've had a complaint about, and the thing that we've constantly been having to talk to people about is that it doesn't matter whether the source material is accurate or not, or what they're putting in is accurate to the source material, if in the context of the show, everything they're doing still doesn't make a lot of sense. Yep. If everything's dumb, but they're getting like little dumb small things or little Easter eggs here and there right, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Those are additives on top of something that's good.
This was my third positive. My last one for the show was that I felt that this was a good scene because they didn't go over the top. I was expecting with just how their writing has been for Master Chief, just to get all into his feelings and, be how could you and maybe lash out at him or something. But he's calm and reserved and he's focused on the mission at hand. And it's how that's overrides this other very important issue, abduction, right? And kidnapping and deception and everything, but right now.
Yeah, they kind of understand that they have to put aside those things because there's nothing that they can change about that for the bigger picture. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's like a small moment of something actually going right in what is otherwise a
bad show.
Yeah, a ridiculous episode. So they're taking off, right? They're gonna go get to the Covenant's planet. Mm-hmm. And Halsey gets shot down or whatever, and she gets captured. And I'm trying to get through a little bit of this because it doesn't really matter. We'll get back to it in a minute.
CGI.
Oh, this just does not look good. You're never gonna convince me this looks good.
I died laughing when I saw that, dude.
Like, they look so low detail.
That design for their is that how it's supposed to look?
Dude, I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't.
In my opinion, that looks bad.
It just doesn't look good. It looks like a Halo 1 map.
It literally does.
Like a multiplayer map.
Yep. It's just horrible.
Yeah, it's just the detail is not.
The set looks cheap. Mm-mm. It looks man. Yes. It could have been a lot better.
So she's back. Obviously, like, she's having trouble. This is also the moment where, surprise, surprise, the Covenant doesn't really like her, and you start to kind of get this feeling that they're using her.
Yeah.
And she hides. Yeah, and she hides her finger.
They could have built that up.
Again, yeah. It could have been dealt with better if the Covenant were actually characters in the show and not just a backdrop that shows up every once in a while to keep the plot moving forward.
Yeah.
She does exactly what she's told, except she doesn't bring in Master Chief's head, so they're like, what the crap? These dudes are just are geriatric aliens. They're just as inconsistent in this episode as everybody else too. Because they have these moments where they're like, we need Master Chief dead. And then they're like, why are you killing Master Chief? And you're like, oh my God.
I know, right? So my question is how does she get her haircut?
With her little finger blade thing.
Finger blade? Yeah, she does it herself?
Yeah, she just keeps it trimmed up. That is a pretty easy haircut to maintain.
I'm just saying.
It's what I was talking about before, where
she lives with the Covenant.
Yeah. You have this group of people, or like her haircut for someone who might be getting into fights, might be going into battle, whatever the case may be. Totally makes sense. It's like high and tight. It's a little bit not as tight generally on the top. But then you compare to like Quan Ha, who's in this like rebel alliance, right? Whose hair is ridiculous. It just like it should look more like this.
Uglier form of a mullet.
Yeah. But this is also a lot of the time considered like the power cut for women now. Usually it's just the one shaved side, but they went the whole thing, and it definitely looks more like a dude. This is how I cut my hair.
Yeah. Well, and me too as well.
Yeah.
The other thing is, how does she get makeup?
That's a good question. It's
actually her. I mean,
it's actually her own blood.
Yeah. I mean, it's just things that I think about. Maybe I'm just the one that's odd that way.
Joseph, don't think about it. She can't
just consume product.
She can't look homely. What are you expecting? Master Chief would never fall for her if she looked like that.
Oh, it didn't take much for him.
So yeah, they go through this whole thing about her asking if she can go with them. She goes so back and forth, she's all over the place in this one too. And then we're back with the Spartans as they're heading to the planet, and this is one of the other scenes that was cracking me up. So they have this whole conversation, and she tells her what Halsey's plan was and admits to her. And it's also foreshadowing for what happens later in the episode, because she's saying, like, I didn't want to take over your body. It's fine. Again, it's stuff that we should have expected their relationship to blossom way before the final episode, at least in my opinion. I think that they could have built that up a lot more so that by the time they were here, there was more of a trusting connection between the two, especially considering what she does at the end of the episode.
In the hands of better writers, it would have been, you would have had that build up of how they don't trust each other. Then you see it slowly over time to where they start to build and build and build. But the problem is that they thought they were better writers than what they actually are, in the sense of trying to handle too many storylines of one and characters in 9 hours apparently.
So here's another great moment of how incompetent the UNSC is, right? So they're all back here, or just kind of getting ready, getting prepped, and they hit like a bump, right, in space, whatever the cause of was. They have some like flyby explanation of why the ship starts like shaking and they're having trouble getting through this atmosphere. We'll put it aside, but this bump happens, right? And where is it? This grenade falls just in the middle of the spaceship. It was just in a position where a slight bump caused it to fall and hit the ground. Like, what are they?
I was dying laughing. And then I think it does it again, too.
Well, yeah, whether it's the grenade or just all this other stuff that somehow is not secured on the ship. They hit all this turbulence because of whatever this field of space that they're going through after
some type of gravity field or anti-gravity field.
Yeah, so here it is, like they're having to pick stuff up off the ground because the whole place is like shaking and things are falling out of these like open cabinets, and you're like, what is this?
And they're being pulled and stuff, and so pretty much that entire scene is just them being pulled for a long time in the ship, just going crazy. And, they have to go in the perfect straight line, or this particular line in order for the ship not to fall apart. And then at some point when the tension builds and it gets hot and it's like, oh no, what's going to happen? And Master Chief just says, hold the line. And Vanek's like, what are you talking about? How do you know? And he's like, I just know.
There just also happens to be
great writing, by the way.
Yeah, there also happens to be this interference that screws with Cortana, and I'm like, all right, but isn't that thing like in his head? Wouldn't it be messing with him?
The same thing.
I'm like, I'm like, it's whatever, right? You can kind of let it go, but at the same time,
because then it get injected into him.
Yeah, it's in his head.
Yeah, like actually in his body.
Yeah, she is inside of his head.
And
so it's like, okay, what would have happened if she had taken control of him early and then they went through this? Would that have still been a problem? Like, would it have disconnected her from Chief?
Yeah, right.
Like, it doesn't again, I'm just like, whatever. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So eventually they get through the thing after he has like this Luke Skywalker moment where he like trusts Cortana and she's like, turn to the left. And he's like, okay.
No, I don't think that actually happens. He just tells Vanek, hold the line, and Vanek says, how do you know, or something like that, and that's when he says,
she says that before then.
Yeah, okay. Before that happens, and then they lose service, and then he says that, hold the line, and I just know. That's the answer. That's how he just knows, David.
Can we say this? So people get badgered or whatever all the time about calling Rey from Star Wars a Mary Sue because she's irritating and just seems to do everything perfectly. He's falling into the same problem.
Yep.
Even though you point out all of these dumb mistakes that he's making, the writing is telling you the opposite of what's actually happening, right? So he sleeps with the enemy. No, that's not a big deal, right?
Hey,
it's a good thing.
Eric Swalwell.
Yeah. He
sleeps with an enemy spy.
Yeah.
That's too on the nose.
Yeah. He denies having all of these Marines come and back up his team on the Covenant home planet, right? Mm-hmm. It goes terrible for them. No, it's not his fault. Like, look, do you remember how cool that scene was? And it's kind of a similar, I wouldn't say it's one for one, but it's borderline the same thing where it's irritating watching him succeed, because he doesn't deserve it.
Well, we've talked about how he's insufferable in this, just not as so like Kwan Ha is.
Yeah. She's another. She's kind of just like wandering through her plot.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas he's making active choices that shouldn't work out the way that they are.
They are, yeah. Like, essentially, no consequences for his actions, or if there are, he just somehow overcomes them because he's Master Chief.
Exactly. So we get back to Halsey. I don't hate this. It was still a little goofy the way that they did this whole scene where they go in and they're talking to each other, right? And then they go away from this, maybe only for like
foreshadow saying you're talking to a ghost.
Yeah, maybe only for like a minute.
Yeah,
and we get back to more of this, which just it doesn't. None of this is. Yeah, it's not. They drop down from the planet. I'm sure.
Did you like this scene?
It's fine. I wish they had done something like this way earlier in the show.
Sooner. That's what I was
so that it would have
saying.
established the fact that this was a thing that they could do. Mm-hmm. Because I remember this.
I thought it was a good scene.
Yeah.
But it's like, I thought it was a good scene 7 episodes ago.
Yeah. He did something like this in Halo 2 from like Orbit or something like that. So it gets a pass because it's close enough to what they were doing in the games that you're like, all right, that's fine.
Well, it feels Halo, right? Feels like
it does. Yeah. It does.
Say that it seems like Halo, right? We're talking about feelings.
It is closer to what we would expect from a Halo show than we've gotten from most of it, right?
Yep.
It is what it is. I again wish this had been established sooner. That's it.
I'm telling you, they just need to. These companies just need to hire me and you, so we can just tell. We'll just be the no men and the yes men, right?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
The thing about it, I guess, is that their suits are just really inconsistent, like we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. It's like they can make these massive jumps out of the sky, but then they get shot a couple times, and somehow the armor's not protecting them, and they're bleeding inside. Mm-hmm. And it just comes back to inconsistencies. It's not that the shot itself is a problem. It's more everything that's been surrounding the power levels of people in the show and how that works.
Kai gets shot a bunch, yet she seems perfectly fine surviving a plane crash.
Yeah. This whole
unless she jumped out like right before and they just didn't show it, but
this whole moment I thought was fine. I mean, it's kind of, again, it goes back to that thing that when we were talking about before, how it would have been nice if this show had been more about this group, like Silver Team, essentially, and their connections to each other, and then you throw in some Marines to add that that factor of, you have like the red shirts, quote unquote, or you just have the people that are potentially going to die or have the ability to die more quickly. So they're building relationships with the Marines, and then they're all going out on missions, and Marines aren't making it back, and it has dramatic impact in those moments. And then when you kill a Spartan off after you've spent enough time with all of them, one of them dies, and then you're like, oh, that's another sort of emotional impact as well, which we're just getting like, again, this is the kind of stuff that should have been shown in the first episode. Them dropping from orbit or where, super high above the ground, landing, taking out some of the Covenant, going in for a mission. They have Marines that are coming with them to back them up. You're getting to see that the Covenant are a force to be reckoned with, but the Marines and the Spartans are also at the top of their game. But we didn't really get any of that, and then we're just getting little glimpses of that in the final episode of the show, and it still doesn't look very good.
Series or this season finale is bad. I was like, this was all that it was.
Yep, and of course
this is what you were saving up for.
They have to do these shots, and of course there's more of those first-person shots in it too.
Dude, that was so bad too.
But of course, with a lot of the people who like the show, they just excuse all of the things that in something like the Doom movie with The Rock from the early 2000s, they're like, oh, stupid in that. It's fine in Halo. It's like, all right. Yeah,
no, that first-person shooter scene in this is probably the worst one.
It looks really bad. It probably looks worse than the one in the first episode.
Yeah, I think it does. I think the one in the first episode was better, but this one was just really bad CGI.
Yeah, so... we're back here again, and Halsey's having a seizure, and then she has like, they do the whole like tell. Yeah, it's an epiphany, but they go, hey, remember all those times that she told you what happens to clones? And then it's like, oh, right, she's a clone. It's like you could have just had her see that and gone like, oh my God, or something like that. And then they're all like, what? It's like, that's a clone. That's not actually Halsey. And then you go, oh, it's not actually Halsey. And then you show Halsey like escaping essentially. And then you could be done with the scene instead of having it drag out. Because it drags out for like a pretty long time.
A long time.
Look at this. It just keeps going. Okay. So we're back with them. They're sneaking up.
Sneaky.
They're trying to be sneaky, even though they're shooting weapons that aren't. They didn't even try to go for the suppressed thing.
I know.
They're just, you know.
And no one can hear them.
Yeah, this high caliber sniper rifles just going off,
and
they're a couple hundred yards away.
This show know what guns sound like.
Yeah, no, they don't, because they don't, and so
yeah,
they assume that we are just as dumb. So anyway, they're putting this whole thing together. Here's the grunt. I'm pretty sure that's the one that sets them off, right? Mm-hmm. Because they put this thing in. And does she touch it, and that's what causes all this to go wrong for them? That's a little bit later, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a little bit later.
For some reason, they get caught. Do you remember why they got caught?
Yeah.
It's slipping my mind.
Shoot.
Because they get caught for reasons. Someone will tell us in the comments. I honestly don't remember.
I know one of the aliens saw them.
Because here they are running.
I can't remember how they got caught. I think Master Chief saw Mackie.
Did he like freeze up?
And he froze up or something.
And then the grunt saw them, and then the grunt gets shot by Razzle Dazzle.
And then there's like Cortana says there's thousands or hundreds or whatnot.
Yeah, she's like two
coming in waves.
She's like 2 or 3 or 400, and they're like, oh crap. Which I was like, all right, that's fine, decent line. I mean, I get she's trying to be a little quippy or whatever. And yeah, they're all running up here. And again, we're getting these super close-up shots of the Marines.
And I don't understand why we have to see what their face looks like in their helmets. Are they not able to exude
emotion?
Emotion with the helmet on?
You would think so, but of course they can't do that, and so you get these really close, awkward shots. Which I can't remember if you had mentioned this or it was a comment from a while back. But what they're trying to do is the Tony Stark thing.
Yeah, I know
where
they're trying to do this.
Yeah.
So dumb.
So then you get, we don't even get. I think these are supposed to be brutes. This is because these are their brute weapons, and I'm really annoyed for just like personal reasons that we really never got the hunters. The
hunters, yep.
Like it's a classic enemy. It's a classic enemy, and we get the worms that live inside of the suits, and not the actual hunters themselves. It's ridiculous.
Well, they spent all their money on that sex scene.
But the source material, they read the books beforehand. It's like, get out of here, man. Come on.
The hunters don't show up until after the AK-47s are disassembled.
This isn't based on the video games that have sold nearly 100 million copies.
It's based on the books that have sold a couple.
Here's your pretty poor looking CG of that. Like this doesn't. I mean, you can tell from the outline of this that they just kind of slapped this into the background. It's it's not so great. And here's this. I mean.
That looks like a video game.
It does.
I saw that, dude. I was dying.
And it's so funny too because when we talk about how we would like the show to be more like the games, people will point to stuff like this and be like, "You just said it looks like a video game." I'm like, "Yeah, but this isn't what we were talking about. We're talking about
it's not supposed to actually look like the video game. Just to be like the video game."
Yeah. There needs to be more well put together action in the show. That's what we were talking about.
The executives heard all the criticisms the showrunners did, and they're like, let's just put the video game up there.
Here's this like little bit of first person stuff that you were talking about.
Yes, it looks so bad.
Where there's it's like, oh, he's out of ammo. It's all in the helmet for so long, dude.
Dude, I was totally waiting for Quan Ha to come in and save the day.
I know. She flies in and with his old machine gun.
Yeah. So, with that minigun.
So this is Kai, right? That
yes.
Gets grabbed originally, and she's like, "Help me!" And he does, and then he gets beat up, and then she can't really decide what to do with herself over here.
Because they're so in love.
Yeah. So they fight, and it's still just kind of lame, and he's like somehow stuck, like just pinned down by his helmet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this dude
From
has
that
survived
axe thing or
this guy.
malice.
Yeah, he is jumping out of like he's taking 1,000-foot drops, right? 1,000-foot plus drops. He can take all these hits. Outside of his suit, he can get beat up by his teammates and survive. He can survive that blast, but he's like, his helmet is getting pushed down by this dude, and it's like there's nothing that he can do.
Yeah.
I'm just like, come on. And this is what I'm talking about. It just seems to be very inconsistent. So they keep going. Oh, dude, this part.
Touches it and has an orgasm.
Definition to a degree of Deus Ex Machina is her touching this thing, and she touches the thing, right? Another blast gets shot out, and is it before? Here it is. All of these elites get blown off the map when she touches this thing. Not all of them, mind you. Some of them somehow survive. Yeah. Despite it being, all of these elites being the same, and I guess there are some grunts there too,
right?
But yeah, all of them get blown off of this thing. I was laughing so hard. I was like, I cannot believe you did that. It's like, oh no, the Spartans are losing. How are we going? And this is like one of those writing things, right? Where you're sitting in a room and you have the scene where you're like, okay, the Spartans are going in. The odds are against them. How are they going to get out of this? And instead of thinking about something smart, you just go, well, Mackie can just touch this thing and a bunch of them will get blown off a cliff.
Solid idea.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, we solved it. Congratulations, everyone. Good work. We're done for the day.
I was like, please, God, let Quan Ha portal in and save the day, because that would just make this episode.
Yeah. So they got the map. I assume this is going to be enough for the Covenant and everyone to figure out where they're going. Now that they have the artifact is going to be with the Marines.
I think one of the Covenant, kings or whatever they're called, made a comment saying the map is incomplete. We need the demon kept alive after Mackie got shot. Because we got to get the map and go to the ring, right?
Couldn't have gotten all of this done earlier.
Nope.
All right, so everyone's like surprised by it, and Chief ends up back in La La Land with Mackie, and they have this whole conversation. And Kai does the smartest thing, and I'm going to say this. Kai does the smartest thing that anyone has done for all 9 episodes.
Yep.
Right? Master Chief's down and out. The team is getting... I was
like, Kai's my favorite character now.
Here he is. They're all like, oh, what's wrong with Chief? And it's like, guys, you've been around him for this whole season. You don't know what happens when that thing gets touched. Like, come on now.
Yeah, right.
But besides that, so they're all like, they're chatting on the Halo ring, and she doesn't want to come back. It's just repeating the same stuff as before. And Kai, again, does the absolute smartest thing. I don't think she hasn't done it yet because they have to talk for like a century.
She's saying, do you love me? And he's saying, I love you, baby. And she said, do you really mean it?
Yeah. So then she gets, she's like, oh, what's happening? She gets shot. It's a little blood stain right here. Just a little one.
Yep. Some Kool-Aid.
And he's still not aware of what's going on. I mean, this is his face through the entire show, dude.
Yeah.
Just unaware. He's being led.
Oblivious.
Yeah, he's being led through the show. And you go, oh, and I knew in that moment, I was like, oh, Kai shot her, right?
Yeah.
So that's what gets him out of it, and he sees her lying on the floor over here, and Kai's like, oh, no. And I'm sitting here going like, no, Kai, you did the right thing. Don't feel bad about it.
She should have said, stop being a wuss. We need to fight.
Yeah. This would have been one of those moments where it would have been actually nice if the woman had actually acted in the role that they usually want them to in Hollywood. Yep. And you're right, just been like, stop being a wuss. It was like, get it together, right? It's like after the admiral told him earlier, you need to be Master Chief. Get it together, right?
Yep.
So she did the right thing. No one will convince me that she did the wrong thing in shooting Mackie, even though, as far as I'm concerned, she's still alive.
Yeah.
She'll be in the next season.
Definitely.
So they go through this whole thing.
Along with Baby Chief.
Razzle Dazzle gets stickied. Look, dude, it's stuck. It's actually sticking. She gets stuck in like the shoulder or whatever, and Kai, being dumb, decides it's a good idea to go over and try to like pull the sticky grenade off of her, and they both get blown up. Here it is, right? So they were like, oh, the demon needs to die, and then they're like, now they have to take the demon alive because they didn't protect their person, even though they were going to sacrifice her anyway. Yeah, it's all right, fine. It's still just kind of ridiculous. Like, Yeah, and then of course they don't capture him.
Yep.
Because for whatever reason, most of their army got blown off of the side of a cliff.
And he says Cortana says, "There's no way that you can save Silver Team and get the artifact."
Yeah. Which is so funny that she says that, because literally 5 minutes later, the whole team is basically like Kai's up on her feet, like nothing's wrong, and so is Vanek. And so Razzle Dazzle's the only one that's actually hurt at all. I mean, she gets pretty seriously hurt from that grenade blast, even though, come on, man, that probably would have killed her.
Yeah.
That should have killed her. How are those things not more powerful than that?
And then, John's like, well, you know what to do, Cortana. I trust you.
Yeah.
Take control over my body, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to bring you back, but I trust you.
I can't remember where the moment is, too. I do want to mention this, because this was another thing that I was laughing about pretty hard. Mm-hmm. So Vanek is like up in his post sniping, right? Mm-hmm. And while Master Chief is in the little like dream world, mm-hmm. I'm trying to find it. Look at this. Where's this shot? She is standing out in the open.
Yep.
Fully out in the open, and it points. She turns around to yell at Chief to wake up.
Clear shots.
Clear as day shots. But she's not the one that goes down. Vanek gets blown out of his little perch.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, like you were saying, Chief gets essentially possessed by Cortana. She, they have this like...
And as soon as he stops talking, I'm like, oh, wow. Master Chief just got a lot better.
Yeah, he's got his helmet on. And there's a couple moments where he's like staring intently, right? Has his helmet on. You can tell exactly what is going on.
Yep. You can feel it too. You can feel the emotion.
Yeah, you can. That's a time when your feelings can actually lead you in the right direction when you're watching something. So Kai's like standing there, and it like dumbfounded about what's going on, even though it seems like they should be aware of what's happening. Like what Cortana taking over for him shouldn't be a mystery to them. I don't.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't understand that either.
So they all kind of get up and they get into the thing, and the geriatric Covenant aliens just stare at them as they get back into the ship. And they leave. One of the things I thought was really interesting is they just leave. I thought Kai was going to go back for Mackie. For a minute.
Oh, you did?
For a minute, I was like, they're going to pull her into the ship. Her emotions are going to get the better of her, or whatever the case may be. So anyway, so they heal up Razzle Dazzle's wound.
With an air cooler
she literally gets part of her chest blown off.
Yeah. And then this is Dr. Halsey.
Yeah, this was the moment, too, that I realized the show wasn't going to be over 45 minutes, because she started doing her monologue, and I was like, oh, this is the kind of monologue you do when you're closing things out.
Yep.
The character that I wanted to see least, or like the plot that I wanted to see least in this episode, was the Halsey Miranda stuff, and they kept switching back to it. They
just don't know what's good and what's not.
Yeah, so essentially she says some words. Was there anything in there that you remember that was worth talking about? She's just monologuing about, I guess, the future, or like what's to come or whatever.
Yeah, and it just ends.
Oh yeah,
as the show began with a flat fart.
So yeah, Kai is like talking to Chief, and she's like, Chief, or whatever, and he just gives her this like blank stare. And this is the moment I think this is the one that I'm referring to most of the time, where he just looks at her, and you're like, oh, it's like the most Master Chief moment in the whole series.
In the entire season. It's the best one.
Obviously, we're being a little hyperbolic. There's probably other moments too.
I'll give him credit. He actually has sand on his uniform.
He's dirty. Unlike Kai in the beginning of the episode, when she goes down in a fiery crash and comes up and she's clean. Like there's no soot, no dust.
A D+. At least he has sand on. At least,
they all did, actually. It's like they all looked like they were rolling around at the beach for a little while. Fair enough. Yeah. And that's it, guys. That is season 1 of Halo.
Or episode 9 and the entire season of Halo.
It's finally over. It's finally over.
I know. Now we get to ask ourselves, when the new season comes out, do we really want to watch this and review it? And the answer will probably be yes. We probably will.
Yeah, well, that was what I was thinking. I was just like, if we're at a point when the next season comes out where, we've grown more and we've got a little more of an audience and people have gone back and watched the reviews that we did for season 1, I don't see why not. I mean, somebody's got to talk about it. And it's terrible. The next season's probably going to be terrible too. But hey, it'll be a lot of fun, and we'll get to hear from probably a whole new group of people constantly trying to convince us that the books are or the show is accurate to the books as far as source material is concerned, and we'll continue to be like, you're missing the entire point.
Yep.
It's fine. It's everyone has those those same few talking points that they stick to when they're trying to argue with people, and I'm like, but we're actually just talking about the show and what's going on with the show and why the show is bad and how a lot of these things don't seem to line up with what we know about the source material, and that's not all, but it is part of it.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing you can't argue with, though, is our value for value system.
I knew it was coming. Good job.
And what you can do is you can go to our description, click that direct.me link, and we use the value for value system here, which means you can donate to us in the form of your time, talent, and treasure. And so whatever value you're getting from our YouTube channel, just donate to us in return, whether if that's you want to set up a PayPal $1 a month recurring payment, that'd be great. That's one thing that we've been kind of advocating for, just set up a $1 a month payment on PayPal and reoccurring. I mean, everyone has $1 to give if you're enjoying our content and you're liking it. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok, like, comment on our videos, and subscribe if you're not subscribed to us. And then feel free to send us anything via email, any articles you come across or videos that you find entertaining, and we'll review them. And if we like them, may show up on our podcast.
Yep.
And don't forget to click our podcast link too and listen to us. We do a social episode on Tuesdays and an entertainment episode on Thursdays.
All right, guys. Well, this is it for reviews for a little while. We'll be going back to talking about really just other entertainment stuff as far as the YouTube content is concerned. It's been a ride.
It has. And it's been good. You wanted to do this for Halo, and it was credit to you for having us do this, because it is definitely has prepared us for when Lord of the Rings comes out.
Yes.
And we do that. And everything else that we do, but specifically for Lord of the Rings.
Yes. And one of these days, guys, if, again, this is why the value for value system is important. If we get to a place where I have more free time, this becomes something that we're able to monetize either through your donations or keep us from doing this. But if we have to get ad revenue coming in from other sources, that will free up time for me to actually be able to sit down and edit episodes and be able to make them a little snappier and be able to put clips in or work with things so that I've actually got the time to do that, because with our schedules, with our schedules right now, what we're doing is really the most that we can do right now without driving ourselves absolutely crazy. So
because we both work full time, and then we do this part time, and this is 10, 15, 20 hours extra a week that we put into it. And so, which we enjoy to do, but again, just like David said, the other incentive you have, the reason why we're saying to set up a $1 reoccurring a month through PayPal. If you want to give through YouTube, that's fine, but we would prefer not to have ads on our channel. But if we get to the place to where we have to do that because, the money's just not there, that's okay. No problem. I understand things are hard.
Yeah.
But that's why we're also only asking for $1 too at that. I mean, you got to think that's $12 a year.
And you can also, a lot of the content that we're going to put on our YouTube page, you'll be able to find on the podcast. So if you would prefer just to listen to what we have to say over there, and there's a lot of stuff that we do over there that we can't post on YouTube. So if you prefer that, that's, everything will be over there. We're not going to run ads on that. I'm not going to sell you waffle makers or pillows or whatever else people are like shilling for, G Fuel. I mean, I get it. Listen, if you're doing that, make your bag. I really don't care. It's just we have made up our mind that we would prefer to do this way so that we're not beholden to advertisers. That's the biggest reason that we're trying to do this system. So other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching our final review for Halo. And until next time, take it easy.
Take it easy.